In the turbulent underworld of Queens, New York, a boy was growing up surrounded by chaos. His name? Curtis James Jackson III. But years later, the world would come to know him as 50 Cent. He didn't have a typical childhood. While other kids played without a care in the world, Curtis learned early on that life was a daily battle. Born on July 6, 1975 in South Jamaica, one of New York's toughest neighborhoods, Curtis was raised by his mother, Sabrina Jackson, his only source of support. But stability was something he never had. Sabrina didn't work in an office or a store. She was involved in high-risk street dealings, one of the few women navigating the dangerous world of underground business. To many, this might seem like a mistake, but for Sabrina it was the only way to give her son a better life. But fate was cruel. When Curtis was just 8 years old, his mother was taken from him under mysterious circumstances. It's said that someone tampered with her drink and then locked her inside an apartment with the gas turned on. The explosion ended her life, leaving Curtis alone in the world. It was the first brutal blow life would deal him, but it wouldn't be the last. Without Sabrina, he moved in with his grandparents, but the struggles continued. The household was modest, and money was always tight. He wanted new sneakers, designer clothes, respect, but how could he get any of that without money? The answer seemed to be in the streets, the same streets that had taken his mother. At 12 years old, Curtis started following a similar path. At first, he ran small errands, but soon he took on a more serious role in the underground world. He hid small packages inside his socks to avoid trouble and quickly learned how to escape from the authorities. But danger was everywhere. At any moment, he could get caught, or worse, lose his life. Despite his environment, there was something about Curtis that set him apart from the other kids. He had a sharp business mind and a natural talent for rapping. In the back alleys of Queens, he started freestyling about his harsh reality. That world wasn't just a daily struggle. It also became the inspiration for his lyrics. But it didn't take long for him to run into serious trouble with the law. At 19, he was arrested for possessing prohibited items and other offenses. The sentence? 3 to 9 years behind bars. Luckily, he managed to reduce his time and served only 6 months in a rehabilitation program. It was during that time that Curtis had a revelation. If he kept going down this path, he would end up like his mother, or locked up forever. He had to turn his life around. That's when music became his only way out. And that's how 50 Cent was born. From the basement of his house, he started recording his first tracks. His lyrics were raw, real, and sharp as a blade. He didn't just want to rap. He wanted to tell his story, to expose the truth of the streets that few dared to speak about. But the past never forgets. And 50 Cent's past was about to catch up with him in a way he never could have imagined. After his short stint in prison, he threw himself into rap with everything he had. The streets had taught him to be ruthless, and he was going to use that mentality to conquer the music industry. But he had no idea just how turbulent his path to the top would be. He started recording his first songs and circulating independent mixtapes. His voice was raw, his rhymes were cutting, and his story, real, harsh, and brutal. It didn't take long before he caught the attention of major names in the underground hip-hop scene. Then in 1999, his big break finally came. He signed a contract with Columbia Records and started working on his debut album, Power of the Dollar. The album was set to release in 2000 and had the potential to turn him into a star. But before that could happen, 50 Cent suffered the biggest attack of his life. On the night of May 24, 2000, everything changed. He was ambushed and shot 9 times at point-blank range. The attack happened outside his grandmother's house in Queens. A hooded gunman stepped out of a car and opened fire. The bullets hit him in the face, chest, arm, leg, and even his hand. One of them pierced his cheek, permanently altering the way he spoke. Miraculously, he survived. But the consequences were devastating. Columbia Records dropped him, canceling the release of Power of the Dollar. In an instant, everything he had built seemed to collapse. Many thought that was the end of 50 Cent. But for him, it was just the beginning. For months, he went through an intense recovery process. Doctors told him he would never be the same again, but he proved them wrong. With a bulletproof vest, now as part of his signature look, he went back to the studio, more determined than ever. That was when he recorded the legendary mixtape Guess Who's Back, 2002. His music made its way to the ears of one of hip-hop's biggest legends, Eminem. Eminem was so impressed that he immediately introduced 50 Cent to Dr. Dre. The two industry giants saw something special in him, a survivor, a true rap warrior. Shortly after, he signed a $1 million deal with Shady Records and Aftermath Entertainment. Finally, his career was about to explode. And then came 2003, the year 50 Cent took over the world. His debut album, Get Rich or Die Tryin', was an absolute phenomenon. The single In Da Club became a global anthem. From a young hustler on the streets of New York, he transformed into the biggest hip-hop star on the planet. But the bigger the fame, the greater the dangers. And 50 Cent still had a lot of enemies. 50 Cent's debut album, Get Rich or Die Tryin', sold over 12 million copies, making it one of the best-selling rap albums of all time. His rise was meteoric, and he quickly became one of the most feared and respected artists in the industry. But what happens when someone who comes from a tough background becomes rich and famous? The enemies don't disappear. They just become more dangerous. Ever since surviving the attempt on his life, 50 Cent knew he was always at risk. But now, beyond physical threats, he faced another battle: betrayals and rivalries within the music industry. The first major conflict erupted with Ja Rule and the Murder Inc. label. Their rivalry dated back to the streets of Queens, but now that 50 Cent was the biggest rap star in the world, he used his power to completely destroy his competition. He released diss tracks like Back Down, directly targeting Ja Rule and his crew. The impact was devastating. Ja Rule, once at the top of the charts, saw his career collapse. Murder Inc. lost its dominance, while 50 Cent reigned supreme over hip-hop. But this war had consequences. Tensions escalated and danger began creeping back into his life. Meanwhile, cracks started forming within G-Unit, the group he had built to solidify his career. Tony Yayo, Lloyd Banks, and Young Buck were rising alongside him. But as each gained independence, egos began to clash. 50 Cent was a relentless leader, demanding absolute loyalty from his crew. But not everyone was willing to follow his rules forever. At the same time, his wealth skyrocketed. He wasn't just a rapper. He was a smart entrepreneur. He launched G-Unit Clothing and secured a multi-million-dollar deal with Vitamin Water, a move that would eventually earn him over $100 million. But as the saying goes, the higher you climb, the more enemies you make. And his biggest rival was about to emerge: The Game. The West Coast rapper was brought into G-Unit by 50 Cent, initially appearing to be the perfect addition. But soon, The Game started questioning 50 Cent's leadership. He refused to take part in conflicts with other rappers and wanted to carve his own path. This created a massive rift within G-Unit, and when The Game publicly challenged 50 Cent, a war broke out. In 2005, their feud turned violent. On March 1st, members from both crews clashed outside the Hot 97 radio station in New York. Shots were fired. Blood was spilled. From that moment on, there was no turning back. 50 Cent was beginning to realize that his own creation was turning against him. And the worst was yet to come. 50 Cent had always seen himself as unstoppable. He survived 9 bullets, crushed his rap rivals, and built a multi-million-dollar empire. But arrogance and power come at a cost, and he was about to learn that lesson the hard way. After years at the top, the first signs of his downfall began to appear. And ironically, the biggest blow came from hip-hop itself. The year was 2007, and hip-hop was changing. A new generation of artists was emerging, and the raw, street-focused rap style that made 50 Cent famous was starting to lose its grip. The audience wanted something more commercial, more melodic, and one artist in particular threatened 50 Cent's reign: Kanye West. The two decided to release their albums on the same day, September 11th, 2007. 50 Cent put everything on the line with Curtis, while Kanye dropped Graduation. The battle was clear: old-school street rap versus the new wave of hip-hop. When the numbers came in, 50 Cent suffered a crushing defeat. Kanye West sold nearly 1 million copies in the first week, while Curtis barely reached 600,000. For the first time, 50 Cent was no longer number one. He tried to play it cool, claiming he was still one of the biggest rappers in the game. But the numbers didn't lie. The world was moving on, and he was being left behind. And it wasn't just his music that was struggling. His business empire was beginning to collapse as well. The first major hit came from his clothing brand, G-Unit Clothing. At first, the brand was a huge success, selling millions. But over time, sales plummeted. G-Unit was no longer a symbol of status. It had become just another forgotten brand. And then came the vitamin water disaster. 50 Cent had made one of the smartest business moves in hip-hop history when he invested in the drink, earning about $100 million when Coca-Cola acquired the company. But instead of protecting his fortune, he burned through it at an insane pace. Mansions, supercars, extravagant parties. He lived like a king. But even kings can fall. 50 Cent wasn't just being hunted by hip-hop rivals. The courts were coming after him too. He was caught in one of the biggest scandals of his life when he was sued for leaking a private video involving a rival's ex-girlfriend, Rick Ross's baby mama. The court had no mercy. He was ordered to pay $7 million in damages. And that was just the beginning. 50 Cent's debts started piling up. His businesses were crumbling, sponsorships vanished, and in 2015 he suffered the biggest humiliation of his career. He declared bankruptcy. The man who was once one of the richest rappers in the world was now broke. The headlines mocked his downfall, and the world laughed at his misfortune. To make things worse, he began losing respect in hip-hop. Many of the artists he once helped, including Lloyd Banks and Young Buck, turned their backs on him. G-Unit, once a dominant force, was now dead. It looked like the end of 50 Cent. But could he rise again? 50 Cent was broke, blacklisted from hip-hop, and his music career was practically dead. What was left for a man who had once had it all? For most people, that would have been the end. But 50 Cent was never an ordinary man. If there was one thing he had learned in the streets of Queens, it was that failure was not an option. He had survived 9 bullets. He would survive this too. After filing for bankruptcy in 2015, he found a legal loophole to restructure his debts and avoid losing everything he had left. While the world laughed at his downfall, he was quietly planning his comeback. But this time, far from music. He realized that hip-hop was changing, and he couldn't compete with the new wave of artists. But there was one place where his fearless mentality and his brutal life story still held value: television. That's when he went all in on a project called Power. The series, which premiered in 2014, told the story of a man trying to leave behind his troubled past and become a legitimate businessman, a reflection of 50 Cent's own journey. He wasn't just the producer. He also played the feared criminal Kanan Stark. The show was a massive hit. Power became one of Starz's most watched series, launching an entire television empire. But 50 wasn't done. He built on Power's success with multiple spin-offs: Power Book 2, Ghost, Power Book 3, Raising Kanan, and Power Book 4, Force. Then came BMF, Black Mafia Family, another smash hit based on a real-life crime syndicate. From a rapper who had lost everything, he became one of the most powerful TV producers in America. This time, he played it smart. He had learned from his past mistakes, made strategic investments, and managed his money wisely. He rebuilt his fortune and climbed back into the ranks of multimillionaires. The jokes about his bankruptcy faded, and the world stopped laughing. Now, they respected him, not as a rapper, but as a businessman. 50 Cent always had a sharp mind for business. He knew that fame in music was temporary. So when his rap career started to decline, he did what few artists ever managed to do. He reinvented himself. This time, he wasn't just selling records. He was building an empire. His biggest move was Power, which turned into a global success. The story of a hustler trying to go legit resonated with millions, but no one expected him to turn Power into a full-fledged media empire. With the success of the original series, he expanded the universe with multiple sequels, all of them drawing huge audiences and proving that 50 Cent was no longer just a rapper. He was a media mogul. But he didn't stop at television. Using his strategic vision, he expanded his investments. He became a major shareholder in F&N Vodka, using his personal brand to push the drink into the mainstream. He signed multi-million-dollar deals in the fashion industry. He invested in Hang WIs, a live streaming app that quickly gained popularity. Unlike before when he spent his money recklessly, 50 Cent was now making smart, calculated moves. He wasn't just trying to get rich, he was making sure he stayed rich. Even though he had stepped away from music for a while, he knew his legacy in hip-hop was still massive. In 2023, he celebrated the 20th anniversary of Get Rich or Die Tryin' with the Final Lap tour. a global event that sold over 1 million tickets and generated more than $100 million in revenue. He proved he was still a legend, and he's not stopping there. Now he's producing a documentary about Luigi Mangione, a criminal involved in one of the most controversial cases of recent years. On top of that, Eminem has publicly said he wants to collaborate on a new album with 50 Cent, something that could mark an explosive return to hip-hop. Today, 50 Cent is more than just a rapper, he's an empire. He went from a street hustler in Queens to a global icon. He survived an assassination attempt, dominated hip-hop, lost everything, and rebuilt his fortune from scratch. Now he's respected not just in music, but in the entire business and entertainment world. No one can underestimate 50 Cent. He fell, he got back up, and he came back stronger than ever. His legacy is alive and thriving, and he's far from done. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss any of our videos.